didn't see you there.
Something big is going on here.
From hunting ghosts to Bigfoot.
Paranormal, UFOs, true crime, and more.
We won't just be spouting articles.
I was researching for your entertainment.
The beginning of a new world.
The best guac you'll ever fucking eat.
True story.
It's basically like one day you walk outside and you see that the ants are playing with matches.
This is the Black Cat Report. See you on the other side.
Hello everyone, and welcome to episode 67 of the Black Cat Report. And today, I'm very excited to announce we have a very special guest who I'm just going to jump right in and give the floor to right up top, Rony Vernet, the researcher and founder of UAP Brazil.com. He's an electronics and computer engineer, and most recently testified at the congressional UFO/UAP hearings in Mexico, which I'm sure you all have seen. Rony, how are you doing today?
Hello, thank you for the invitation. It was not easy to schedule, but I hope everyone, your audience, will like it, what you have to talk today. And again, thank you. I think we'll have a special day of this conversation.
I think so too, and we've all been very excited. And along with Rony, we also have the incredible Joey. Hey! And the incredible Betsabe.
Hola!
Now, as I said up top, you are a researcher and founder of UAP Brazil.com. Now, Rony, would you mind, I guess, going into that a little bit? Tell us a little bit, or tell our audience a little bit about what the goals are, what it is, and what it means to folks that are in the UFO community or interested in UFOs and UAP in Brazil, like what the organization kind of represents.
Yeah, the proposal of UAP Brazil, when I founded it, it was to give to the non-Portuguese speaker, mainly English speakers and people around the world, to know about some cases, very interesting case that you have here in Brazil that happened here since the 40s, and that unfortunately are not in English, are in Portuguese, so not a big crowd could appreciate that documentation. So I started to translate some videos, put in English subtitles, translate some documents in English, original documents from Brazilian government that we have in our national archives, and this is how the UAP Brazil born. Ultimately, specifically in the last year, I've been very, very busy with I'm doing my master research in physics and ending right now this year. A lot of things occurring, like also in the UFO world that I'm participating in my job. So all these distractions and also mundane distractions mainly are blocking me to produce more for UAP Brazil. But next year in 2004, you will see a lot of new material. I'm getting a lot of material to be translated. My main goal is to have all our national archives in Brazil translated in English, the PDF, not only in textual, but to get the document, the PDF, and transform that Portuguese letters in English letters to a big crowd that speaks English to appreciate that. That's the main goal of UAP Brazil, to disclose cases to the world. Yeah.
That is absolutely awesome, and I will admit that's how I came across you originally. So something that we've always tried to strive for at the Black Cat Report, and we cover a wide range of topics from serial killers to cryptids to UFO experiences and encounters, things of that nature. We always try to reach out of our I would say our linguistic boundaries. Right? And when I came across your research, I was so happy that I didn't have to just, put everything that you were doing through Google Translate and try to have it make sense of, what was going on. But coming across your research, I really felt like it was a handshake across the bridge, that we do live in such a, I could say a fence, right? So we have, United States, we have Canada, and we have England, and it's kind of like whatever information around UFOs is coming out around there, it's kind of, that's it. And for the most part, and I say that too, we even ignore, say, South Africa, we ignore Australia, when it comes out.
Yeah.
Other than just a few major cases, which I do want to get to, obviously, some of the more major cases in Brazil, right? Some of the more famous ones, at least stateside. But yeah, so you're saying that with the UAP Brazil, right, and with founding it, you're really trying to reach that broader audience. You're trying to build a bigger coalition of knowledge around the topic in Brazil. Where do we go to with that? There's such a deep history. I guess what is occupying your mind right now? What's keeping you up at night right now? Cases that you're investigating. I know just before we recorded, I saw on your Twitter you were talking about ultraviolet light, and a video that was coming out. Would you mind speaking about that a little bit? About what's the cutting edge of what you're finding?
I receive tons of videos in Brazil, as you know. Historically, Brazil is a place where we have a lot of cities in Brazil that are isolated, very isolated, with low density population, and I think very preserved nature, very preserved environment, forest. So I think all these ingredients do this mix to give us these hotspots, UFO hotspots in Brazil. And a lot of people send me a lot of videos. Logically, most of them are just slides very far, that not very interesting, but I'm receiving very interesting videos, like this violet UAP. Very strange, because this violet UAP, if you look, it was filmed. People say, "Oh, I need a full HD video." It was filmed in the last iPhone, best cameras in the market. Logically, it's not close objects in a few meters, but it's close. It's low in altitude in the sky, and we can see some very interesting details, including the surrounding of the object, that's like ionized air, because it's blue, the object's violet, and you have this air around the object's blue. What's a very, very interesting characteristics. And also, I was in Mexico, and you discussed today, I think, and I'm in contact with a lot of pilots in Mexico, more than 20 pilots, and every day they are posting videos, sharing videos with me, with other people, that they are in contact about what they are seeing in the sky. And some of them that I have posted on Twitter are very interesting. So we don't have anymore the monopoly of the government to have good videos. We'll start to get, logically, we don't have very detailed videos with the craft a few meters from us, but maybe we will have this someday. I don't know, because the pilots are approaching very close to these objects. Maybe one of these pilots could someday do a video like that. So I'm very occupied analyzing, not analyzing in strict sense, but just check the basic, check the metadata of the video, to check the date time, the local that the people are saying it was recorded, doing some stabilization, zoom, to see some characteristics of objects that was in some cases very, very likely other objects I have seen in Brazil, with very confident people that filmed that, very trustful people. I'm very busy right now with requests for the Freedom of Information Act in Brazil. For example, just today, I submitted two important requests under the Freedom of Information Act in Brazil to get more documents. I'm in contact with Brazilian senators, not daily, but I'd say monthly, to change information, to exchange information. They ask things, so I think they are not dedicated to that, but looking more closely to this topic, to give more transparency. As you know, as I said, also I was in Mexico at the Congress in Mexico, giving my speech about crises in Brazil. So we have all of the podcasts. I'm here with you, share information, and I'm here because I think it's very, very valuable to share with you information, to hear information from you. Sometimes you think out of the box, and you give me some ideas, new ideas that I could apply to fight for more transparency, to get more documents, to get more videos from the government. and all this stuff. And I think to talk and to share information is the best weapon that we have to grow this topic as a whole. Yeah.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
And also, I just want to say hi to your cat. That's
Yeah, I have two non-human intelligence here in my house.
Yeah.
One of them is my cat. It's not a black cat like your podcast. It's the Kit Kat is the name. Like the chocolate. Yeah.
yeah.
And
Kit
he has
Kat?
a brother. Has a brother called Billy. Billy is my French bulldog.
We
He's
saw
sleeping
around
that side. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we saw him.
We have to.
Anytime he'll come to say hi for you.
I would
Yeah.
love
Yeah.
that. We'd all
Yeah.
love that. Yeah. I mean, literally, the cat's in the name. We love cats. You know.
Yeah.
Obviously. You know. Aw, and that's awesome. But yeah. So yeah. Well, I mean, I guess like stepping back a little bit from there, which I do also want to throw out there. A violet-colored UFO that is, or UAP. I guess I'm old school. I keep wanting to say UFO, but UAP does match the term a little bit better because they're not always flying. Sometimes they're swimming. Sometimes they're going through mountains, doing all sorts of things. But I've never heard of a violet-colored UFO before. Just ever.
Very interesting. And if you go to my Twitter, there are some people that recorded something not equal, but very likely what this violet UAP. It's good people to check the comments. There are very interesting photos with that same characteristics of the blue ionization around the objects. I have posted today that the nitrogen is the gas in the atmosphere that's more abundant. 78% of our gas in the atmosphere is nitrogen. And one of the colors, we have many colors that we could ionize, depending on the energy that collides with the nitrogen atoms. We could release energy in many colors, but we have this blue color is specifically around the objects, is specifically from the nitrogen element, what is very interesting. Maybe it's a tip about what we are seeing here.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's definitely an engineer's mind of thinking about
Yeah.
that part of it.
Can everybody see the screen that I'm sharing?
Yeah,
here?
we're
Yes.
watching
Yes.
it.
Okay. Yeah. This is. I've just never. I've seen so many orb videos. I've seen so many UAP videos. Right. I've never seen it these colors. Right. These specific colors.
It's so beautiful.
It is.
Yeah, I released an equally beautiful object. It's not spherical with something like a cylinder that people filmed very, very close. That object was chasing. I was in Ceará State in northeast of Brazil. It's a paradise, very, very beautiful beaches, and also many UFOs because in this state we have many areas that are very, very isolated. Some of them without electric energy. And these UFOs, these UAP, love these places with low density population, no lights, nature preserver to appear. So I was there, and people filmed very, very close to one of these objects. These people was being chased by one of these objects. And these objects, the interesting fact of this object that we'll reveal maybe in the next few weeks is that this object has the same blue color around this solid or plasma objects that we will see. That's not violet, it's more like blue to white, more blue between blue and white, but the same blue color around this object, but it's very interesting. Different videos, one from more south of Brazil, other from northeast of Brazil with the same characteristics of lights. So very interesting. And you'll see
something.
soon.
Yeah, with something so fast that can move through much of the air, I imagine it would be you could get a lot of different parts of Brazil, especially get people getting different videos of the same thing.
Yeah.
Which is really cool. One of the things I wanted to ask, I know that, UFO researchers are very much into data, very much into everything, like down-earth data. We're getting into the details. A lot of what I like to hear about is what do you think about things? What's your what you would come to terms with of if you were seeing you know, a lot of people say they see orange globes or orange orbs or orange reddish orbs. I know there you have that was like kind of a purple blue, kind of a whitish blue too. And then a lot of people also see like metallic discs. In your opinion, do you think that these are all kind of the same intelligence, or do you think they're different, or what would you say about that?
Yeah, in Brazil, we have two main types of objects that we see here. One of type is more technological. Sometimes it's more rare, but sometimes people see metallic stuff flying, for example, during the day, not during the night. But it's very more rare than that. But we see it's more common to see these types of objects emitting light. Sometimes objects that has a lot of colors being emitted, like rotating and something like that. Most of them are spheres. Sometimes they are more elliptical, more long objects like tic tacs. And we have another kind of phenomenon that is very odd because it's something more like esoteric or interdimensional or spiritual, or the name you want to do, based on your religion, or we don't have religion. It's like spheres. Most of them are orange or yellow, amber or red ones. Sometimes white to blue, but the most often yellow to red. They are very, very brilliant, very, very glowing objects, but they simply don't affect your eyes. It's like you're in front of a sun and you could perfectly see them with your eyes without affect your eyeballs. And no noise, a very strange movement. It's like a physical object that seems to not affect our physical reality or physical world because simply does not emit radiation. It's a light very bright that not affect your eyes. So it's like a holographic thing. So this is another type of phenomena that we have here. We see then a lot in the forests in Brazil, preserved forests, sometimes on top of the trees, sometimes in the mountains, sometimes giving some circuit around the trees. So it's very interesting.
Wow, so you have actually witnessed this?
Yes, this is the only type I have witnessed. Is this kind of like holographic orbs. It's one time I was in the Amazon, in one of the states that compose the Amazon. I was not in the forest, I was in the city, but in the Amazon region. And I saw like a plane. I was with 3 colleagues from my work. I work for a federal state government here in Brazil for oil and gas. I was with 3 colleagues of mine, my co-workers, and we was at the hotel, on the top of the hotel, on the rooftop. And there was a lot of taxi drivers pointing to the sky. We was arriving to the hotel, and we saw a lot of taxi drivers pointing to the sky. We saw a crazy violet. I remember this right now because it was violet. It was the my only sighting of a violet UAP, and maybe I didn't receive, as you said, it's very rare. I didn't receive any videos that I received was violet. This was the only one. So this is interesting. I had this violet sighting the first time and last time in my life, and I received this violet. I cannot say it was. I cannot remember all the details. If it was almost the same, it seems like that.
Yeah.
And we run it to the rooftop of the hotel. It was not there anymore. This violet, but we saw a red one that was like I gave the name of popcorn on the pot because it was like risking the sky, drowning in the sky, and you see that trajectory when he moves from there to there. You see like when you take a photo with high exposure that you see the path of
like
the
a laser
movement.
pointer.
Yes, and it was
like,
it became static.
Oh.
and turned it in a plane because it passed a few meters above us like a plane. No, we cannot just distinguish of a plane because the lights, the navigating light was the same.
Yeah.
It was like a morphing or shape shifting or something like that. It was crazy.
Yeah.
But it was the only occasion, this one, that I saw something like technological. All other sightings that I had in my life about orbs and luminous phenomena was this kind of holographic like lights that do not affect our eyes, and I see a lot of them. We have a hotspot here in Rio near my home, like 2 to 3 hours from my home, that I visit a lot. I have cameras there. I have a project to monitor this place, and it's very interesting.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
fascinating.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
is nuts. And like
I know
we oh, go ahead.
Yeah,
Sorry.
we're
I
gonna
think
probably
we're
say the
about to
same
say
thing.
the same thing.
Yeah, around our area and the Blue Ridge Mountains in North Carolina, we have a place called the Brown Mountain Lights. It's very similar to what you're describing, except it was kind of like white orbish kind of thing, I think. Yeah, and it was very similar.
Yeah, we and I believe his name Dan Zetterstrom, another UFO UAP researcher who I ran into on the Brown Mountain over the summer. Up there looking for the Brown Mountain Lights. You go up to this mountain here. There's a beautiful view. It's very rough roads to get up. It's just straight up a mountain, and your car's just going like this the whole time, you know. But you get up to the top, and there's a beautiful, beautiful view of the canyons and everything. You just wait until nightfall, and as the stories go, as the witness reports go, there'll just be these massive orbs that will appear and just start moving slowly, like through, and you know, they're going around trees, just going through the trees, going over, and the way they used to be reported hundreds of years ago is that it looked like lanterns, you know, like going through the woods, except that the lanterns kept going when the edge of the cliff came, and they would just keep going, you know, and then shoot up into the sky or start playing with each other. A lot of folks have, a lot of witnesses have described them in the sense of like they almost appear to be playing, like with each other, as if there's some sort of intelligence behind them. And
some people here say that this was like guardians of the forest or guardians of the mountains, what we could call the elementals. It's something like that I think that could be real. Yeah.
That's, and that, okay, so and hearing what you're saying, and I kind of just, you know, processing and thinking about it, and obviously comparing it to what I know around like reports here and such, it honestly makes me wonder that, you know, are there hot spots in these areas, in these rural areas, right? Areas that lower population, small isolated areas. Are they hot spots, or do they have less light pollution? Right? Is there less lights that are blocking out what's going on in the sky? Right?
Yeah. Your question is interesting because I travel a lot in Brazil from north to east asking people about this phenomena. And I visited some direct victims of the lights in the Operation Saucer in end of 70s in Brazil. That was case most investigated by the Air Force here. And some of these victims had permanent sequelae, permanent injuries, mainly brain diseases like mental disorders and something like that. I could not talk with these ones, but the families of these people, and also some direct witnesses and people affected that not had any sequelae. And to be clear, this is exception, it's not a rule. Almost all the people that was affected didn't develop any permanent sequelae, any permanent injury.
Okay.
And these people said, these people that live it, and just you to know how these people live in the middle of the forest, like 70s. There was no electric energy, there was no roads. These people lived in the middle of, literally in the middle of the jungle, and you just reach that house by boat, and this house is located in a place that the next house is miles away. It's crazy that and
Yeah.
these people lived mainly by the hunting little animals or fishing to have your own subsistence, because you don't have roads to make the food reach their homes.
Yeah.
It was in the 70s. Today is very, very more developed, logically. But at that time, they said, Ronnie, when he started to open the roads, when he started to bring more houses, to build more homes, when he started to put lights in the poles, all the animals that we use it to hunt, and all the phenomena went away. So it's very interesting, because it's like something, the behavior of these lights is like some element of the nature, like the animals. All the animals was gone, and all the lights was gone. So it was very interesting, because it seems that these lights have some being or animal behavior, because they don't want to be in the same place as the humans, as the lights, and as the same place where the human development arrives. So it's very interesting.
Well, I would almost to kind of to take that a little bit farther, right? Or at least to split it in another direction, right? There's a long history and so many reports about the observers phenomenon. At least like in terms of like physics, there's that. But with UAP, with UFO, there's so many cases where folks are on the edge of a mountain and they see a little silver dot far off in the distance, and they report over and over again, sometimes very dramatic, right? And sometimes uncomfortable, but not quite to the level of being abducted. They report that they feel over and over again that the object knows that they see it, right? Over and over again, this is something that people say, that the object starts to behave differently once it's being observed, right? It interacts with them. It comes close to them. It becomes a close encounter of the third kind or things like this. But only once the object has been seen and they've recognized it as something, frankly, that's unknown, then it comes close. Then it wants to interact with them. And
yeah,
so
that was a very interesting case that happened with me in 2018. I was in the hotspot trying to observe these lights for the first time. I was very lucky there. Lucky, but I do not care lucky, because lucky for me, for example, if something have to happen, it will happen. It's destiny. It will happen.
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah.
And it was to happen when I was there. So I say lucky, but with that connotation of this needed to happen to change my mind. And I was in 2008 for the first time in a hotspot in Brazil. I just read a book about this same place that I'm talking about, which is called the Beauty Hill here in Brazil. In Portuguese, it's Serra da Beleza. It's like Beauty Hill in translation, Beauty Mountains or something like that. And I was there with my ex-wife. We was looking at a huge light in the mountain, not a mountain to distance. It's a high place, so this light, like I don't know, 600 feet. It's not too far, and this huge light was traveling around the peak of the mountain. And I played with her. Oh, let's pretend, let's mentalize to this light, get closer, because nothing different has happened. Let's mentalize to get closer. And that moment, a small one is like 30 centimeters. It's like my hand, the diameter. It was white, very bright, but not, again, it's like holographic. It's not affect our eyes, no noise. It comes from behind us, turn around, and started to come in our direction. She started to cry in panic. Ooh. And this is an example that is very intelligent, smart behavior behind these lights, because it was like automatically responded to what was thought. So about to get closer.
But and that makes sense, because how many in my mind, how many close encounter situations where people are abducted or they have close contact, right? Everything. I've never heard of a situation where somebody has a close encounter with extraterrestrials, right, where they're actually speaking. It's always mental. It's always been, mind to mind. And so why would we assume that there is a distance on that there is a range on how far the minds communicate? To me, that's actually silly. We assume that we have to be face to face, right? But in reality, maybe they're able to hear us from 700 feet away, 2 miles away, 3 miles away, 4 miles. I don't know. I mean, they're able to get here, so honestly, like if we're going to push our imagination, why can they only hear us when our eyes are making contact? So why aren't they in the craft and they're like, oh, somebody sees us, and they look over and they go over to it. But that's where I would go with that. But
I think our consciousness has a key role about this phenomena, because it's something like we could entangle, we could connect with our consciousness, because a lot of cases, for example, another case in 2021, I was just taking pictures of a place and beings and lights appeared exactly where I was taking pictures. Some I was connected, because we have all the mountains, all the space, all the sky to all the ground, the forest to disappear, and appeared exactly in the place I was taking photos. Very, very odd, very odd. It was not something like, oh no, I take a photo and appeared only in the photo. No, I take a photo, I get my camera off, I would get my binoculars, it was there, I take photos, videos, and everything was there. So why there? It's logical for me that was like connected with my consciousness, what I focused on, I'm concentrated at that moment, and it just appeared there. So I think the consciousness play a key role to connect or even interact with this kind of phenomenon.
I love that. Yeah, because this is one of my questions that I've always had, is that why do certain people get to witness this? Like, I've never seen anything ever, and sometimes I think, like, do they choose the people who they want to show themselves to? Is there something behind it? Is it just luck? So I love the way that you're explaining that. And yeah, I can totally believe that it goes deeper than that.
Yeah, very interesting your question, because when I say, oh, I have a hot spot in Brazil, people say, oh, I will go the first time, I will see beings, orbs, and flying saucer. No. It's a hot spot because if you go 10 times, in one time you see. If you come where I live in Rio, in capital of Rio de Janeiro, in Brazil, if you go 100 times, 99 times, you won't see nothing, because nothing's there near the capital. So when you go to hotspot, so you have to have constants, you have to have determination, you have to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you have logically a higher probability, very, very high probability to see something. But it's nothing like magical that you go and to see some things. You have to have determination, and I think if you want to see, if you have determination to see, if you have these constant visits to the place, wear your boots and start to it's very difficult, because sometimes you arrive like 6 p.m. and you stay around 3 a.m. and nothing appeared, and 3:30 something appeared, and you think, oh my God, if it was gone like 30 minutes ago, I would not see nothing. So you have to have determination, and I think logically the main ingredient is to visit a place where you have historic of the sightings. If you go to Washington, you won't see nothing except in 1952 when they visited. But
then
normally,
every weekend.
Normally you stay 3 years there, from 6 p.m. to 3 a.m. and you see nothing. So the main ingredient for me is, one is the right place, and two is determination and constant visits to see something.
But I will follow up with that and say that if you go to Washington, you might not see UFOs, but you will see literal zombies that are still running the country.
I want to
Thank you.
piggyback on on what you're saying too about the UAPs and like a lot of people, you know, the determination involved in it. Do you think with all the people, high profile people like the former president of Brazil, Fernando Henrique Cardoso, and like former head of Israel's defense ministry's space directorate, all coming out being like UFOs are real, we've been studying them, and the U.S. government recently, well, probably an emissary from the U.S. government recently coming out and saying that, you know, we've been studying them.
Yeah.
Why do you think a lot of that is, you know, the determination of people? Why do you think there's like a reluctance for a lot of people to admit that either we've been visited or that like UFOs are real?
Yeah, for the Air Force, we have a lot of generals from Brazilian Air Force was very open to that. One of them was the General José Carlos Pereira, that unfortunately is deceased. He said one time that we released all the documentation that was possible, because people asked him, "Oh, the videos of the Operation Saucer, the compelling videos that military filmed close to the crafts, that the crafts goes inside the rivers and outside the rivers, and we have a lot of videos about that. You never release." And he said, "Oh, I don't know if this video exists, but what we released, it was possible," because they think the next thing when they release something like that is the questions of the population that they are not able to respond. So he said, the next question is, where are they from? What are their intentions?
Yeah.
Where are their origins? So we cannot respond. They want to destroy. They're here to monitor our capacities. They are for example, in 1986, we was invaded by many dozens of UFOs, motherships, and all this kind of stuff. Our jet fighters was released, deployed to pursue and chase these lights all over the Brazil, many states, and these lights was positioned in like oil and gas production plants, like electric energy plants, military bases, and strategic and energetic and military places all over Brazil, kind of monitoring what we are doing, our capabilities, and so on. So people will do a lot of questions that the military cannot reply, cannot respond, cannot give an answer, and I think this is one of the main reasons about the secret.
And it's a great answer.
They are very afraid to public lose trust in the military, because we are all the power military. We are here to protect the population of all the menaces, the enemies, and so on. And we have lights that go and in and go out of our airspace, and we cannot do nothing. So it's very difficult position for them.
So that actually, so that leads me to like the Acre UFO case, or UAP case, the orbs, right, in around 2014, right, which can be found on UAPBrazil.com. You can find the original Portuguese, and you can actually find like the English translations, with Rony did, which like helped me so much digging through and reading them. I will say the Brazilian government rivals the American government in terms of bureaucracy. Oh my God, the back and forth between whereas like, I received this at this date, I sent this at this date, it's like, we have 20 hours left to respond, I responded, it's, oh my, you got every receipt, every single thing that came out of that. But a lot of the original case, right? So at least for me, when I was kind of going through and I was breaking it down, and the highlighting and underlining and taking notes on all of this, a lot of, for me, it was the original argument from the government, which I would love to get into the details of actually what the case is here in a moment. But the original argument was based around like, are these criminal cartels, right? Are they drug runners? Are they illegal miners? Are they any number of like criminal elements that are coming over from Peru? And like the only actions we can take initially is just military actions and like investigating this as criminal behavior. Everything was based around, is this a criminal occupation, a criminal threat to the folks that are in this region, to the indigenous folks that are in this area. And it was a lot of communication with like the military in the area, the police coming in, and they didn't care. Honestly, at least the view that I got from it was they could care less if it was a UFO.
If you remember,
one
of the communications was with the Brazilian army.
Yeah.
And the Brazilian army said, "Oh, don't worry, I heard this is a conflict between different tribes.
Yeah.
Nothing to see here.
Totally
We don't
didn't care.
Wow.
we won't investigate because it's just a conflict between different tribes."
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It was the way.
And the
they
Air
were-
Force said, "Oh, we won't investigate because we didn't detect anything in the sky.
Yeah.
And these objects are descending near the ground, so the army needs to investigate."
Yeah. there was so much just bureaucracy that was at play there. And I remember at least one I guess the anthropologist like came in and she was very much, if I remember correctly, she was like pushing for like, I want to investigate this. I really want to investigate this. And they're like, sorry, we don't have the resources for it, and it's not criminal. She's like, that was I know we're jumping along here in a few things, but God, there were so many. It was just God, the case is so special to me because it shows how the government just kind of throws it onto the desk and stacks things on top of it, and like lets dust build up, and they just ignore it. They're like,
and based on the historic, on the last cases in many years, they already know that this kind of phenomena didn't last too much. It's like 2-3 months and go to another city. And when this started to happen, they just pray, "Oh my God, we need these cases to go away." And between this, when it's happening, like this 2-3 months that the case is happening, they search for elements that could invalidate or could serve as some element that could exclude they from the investigation.
And I swear we're gonna break this down. I know folks listening right now are like, what the hell are you talking about right now? But I will say, I was so annoyed when I was reading the one of the, I don't know, second or third report coming from the area where they tried to say that it was ayahuasca, right? That it was DMT and MAOIs, and they were like, well, some of the folks, they drink ayahuasca, they're involved in a ceremony. My first reaction, Joey can back me on this. I get very heated about these things, about how we make all indigenous folks into children when it comes into to viewing their perspectives on things. It angers me so much. But it was just like, okay, so these folks who are participating in a very serious religious ceremony do it on a regular basis. All of a sudden, let's just say 1 month, have a bad batch. Like, what are you saying? Like, this is a regular thing for them. And then just 1 month out of thousands, literally thousands of years of usage, they're just like, what's that light over there? They just never look to the right at any point in history. It's just like, this is the stupidest thing.
And one thing interesting is that this specific tribe, they were one of the first, together with Peru, to consume and to present the ayahuasca to the world. So people start to go to that tribes to do this experimentation with ayahuasca. But this specific tribe, since many years, are losing these rituals of ayahuasca. All the rituals of ayahuasca, the shaman of this specific tribe needs to go to other city to do this kind of ritual, because this specific tribe is losing. They don't do the ayahuasca, and if they do ayahuasca, it's like one time in a year. So and they was seeing that every day in June of 2014.
And in that case too, I think which is another thing that bothered me. The government only paid attention to folks that were coming from outside of the village, outside of the tribe, and were there stationed for a short period of time. Like you said, one of the biggest things is consistency. It's persistence. It's staying there for multiple days and viewing it. And the government relied more on folks from the city coming in for 2 or 3 days. And they were like, hey, you just came back. Did you see anything? Talk to us. We're going to weigh what you say against 20 or 30 people. and it was so absurd. But even what that one person said around the time, other than the fact that the official government document went on for, I think, 2 pages, literally quoting Wikipedia about ayahuasca, which was so stupid. And I was like, wow, that's where the tax dollars are going.
But one thing interesting that happening. Yeah, sure. But one thing interesting that happening after these claims about ayahuasca is that after that, many anthropologists, many doctors, many people that was doing their doctorates in anthropology was going to this tribe to do their studies. One of them is Carolina Comanduli, that was doing this doctorate in anthropology by the College of London in England. He's Brazilian, she's Brazilian, but she was doing his doctorate by England. And she was there at that moment. And one time she saw an orb entering the house that she was sleeping. I could interview her. It was not disclosed, this interview, because she was very, very, like I say, a closed person, not public private. Say about the things, very private. But she said to me, I was terrorized. I wanted to cry because she thought that was a man with a lantern, a lamp, a flashlight entering the house. But when get closer, like 1 meter for her, it was floating in like 1 meter, 3 feet from the ground. Any noise, and it was like doing some search, like pulsating the light against people that was sleeping, like monitoring these people. And he was terrified. He said to me, the only thing that I could do when I saw that was not a man, it was just a strange light, was to turn by side, put my arms to close my eyes and try to sleep. She didn't sleep that night, but she just didn't want to see anymore that what was the same reaction that I had in 2021 when I saw the beings with my binoculars. It was so crazy, it was so disturbing that I saw for them like 5 to 10 seconds. That for me was like 1 day looking, because 5 seconds to 10 seconds when you look something in binocular very close and you don't have any doubts that what about you are seeing, but it's so crazy that you don't want, oh my god, I don't want to see that anymore. And I simply put to camera to film by very far, but film it. And I went away. The same. She had the same reaction, because it was so bizarre, so out of this world, that she just had the action to put the arms on her eyes, turn around, and try to sleep, and it was not possible to sleep.
That was and that that was one of the final cases in the documents that you were able to get a hold of from the Brazilian government through the Freedom of Information Act. And like, again, you can go to uapbrazil.com, and you can read this there. So she was the one, and I guess to give some context to listeners, so picture so again, this is in the rainforest, right? So you have where everybody is sleeping, picture a large porch, right, area with like fencing or railing going around the side, completely open, right, just like open walls, and you have a roof over top of it, and you have a bunch of folks that are sleeping, right, on this porch area in hammocks, right, very, very traditional like setup. And she was one of the only people, at least that I know, that have stepped forward, who was awake when this took place. This large orb, what was it, 3 to 6 meters or something like that? It was a large orb that like came up onto the porch. I might have the sizing wrong, I apologize, but massive bright light that like comes up floating onto the porch, right, while everybody's sleeping in this open air like area, comes onto the porch and starts flashing lights, almost like a camera flash, but this orb stays on. And it's just flashing like boom, boom, boom. Like you were saying that it was kind of like scanning or like searching the area. It was almost just like taking photos in a sense of everybody there. This wasn't a drone. You included Rony, like you included like a photo of the actual porch. Like it's a small area. You would be able to tell if it was a drone flying like in this area. It's not that huge. It's big, but it's like you would hear like a drone actually being present.
Yeah.
Just a giant light comes in and starts flashing like people. She sees this and literally is watching it scan folks. Like flashing. And this village, this tribe, it's known for having these types of phenomenon happening, right? Like part of this, like this eventually falls into the case that goes back to 2014 when the government was looking into it and when the army was arguing with the Air Force, was arguing with the police, was arguing with everybody about who's going to investigate it and why should they care. And eventually they send 2 cops out there who apparently spent the night and didn't see anything. And so they just left. That's basically what happened. It was 2 days. The cops were like, we didn't see anything. And everybody in the village is like, yeah, so it comes every week, and it generally comes on a Sunday. And you weren't here on a Sunday, and you were only here. And we told you
and
this is when
if you
it
remember,
happens. Yeah.
If you remember the Operation Saucer in the 70s, the Air Force needed 2 months to start to see something. And when they started to see, this become very, very, very intense because they started to communicate. Not communicate, they communicate, but they could see communications arriving in their radios. The lights and the ships started to get closer and closer to them. And as you said, the Federal Police of Brazil didn't have any resources to stay more. They like to stay more, but it's a very, very isolated place with very, very low contingent of policemen, and they didn't have resources. But this testimony, as I said, nothing happens without a purpose. I think the fact that Carolina Comanduri, the researcher, the anthropologist, to be awake, the only one awake at that moment, was very important because first, she's one of the most prominent, more respectable researchers about indigenous case in Brazil. She had occupied many positions of high positions in our National Indigenous Foundation, which is a federal service foundation of indigenous people in Brazil. So when she gave that testimony, they opened another investigation, not a criminal investigation, but a civil investigation by another means. So, okay, it's not a crime. It's not like we cannot arrest anomalous phenomena. So let's do a civil inquiry, a civil investigation to try to disclose what's happening. But unfortunately, they just didn't have resources. We are talking about a tribe inside of the most inside place in Amazon, very difficult to reach, and unfortunately, because of lack of resources, they had to close that investigation.
But I will say though, the closing of that investigation was hilarious to me in a dark sense, in a bad sense, right? Because they were like, hey, so all these things are happening. Yeah, we'll send you out there, but you're required to go out there like a year from now, right? Like, wasn't that the original like wrap up of the case was whoever they were going to send out there to investigate it, they were like, yeah, we're totally going to look into it a year from now. And then the anthropologist or the specialist literally replied back to the government and said, this stuff's going on right now. I should go out there like right now. I should go investigate this. And they were like, no. You can go look at it next year. And but there was like a whole back and forth, like an argument where he was like, no, I think at one point he even said like, I'll just go out there on my own. You don't have to pay me. I want to investigate this. Like it became like a whole push back and forth. The government was like, no, don't worry about it. And he was like, but this goes back to what you're saying about them just kind of like praying, like, please just go away. We only have to survive 2 or 3 months. Everything will be fine. It'll be the next administration's problem in a few years. It's all okay, you know. But like literally at the point where it like because this went on for what it was 2014 to 2016, I believe. It was like 2 or 3 months happening from 2014, happened a few times, went away for a while. The government's like, oh, well, we went out here for 24 hours, didn't see anything, bye. And then they were like, no, they're back again, they're still here.
And the interesting thing is that they said, oh, we are closing the investigation because we don't have resources, and we asked people, and this is not happening anymore, and they closed it. And like 1 month later, another tribe located for like 100 miles of this first tribe.
Yeah.
The object descended. It blew away all the flashlights of the indigenous.
Oh.
All the flashlights of them was simply
So it just
malfunction. Just didn't work anymore. This like 20 indigenous group was very, very worried. One of them was with a shotgun, and he fired 20 shotgun shots against the object, and this phenomena just emitted one beam of light against him, and he was just down in the ground, unconsciousness, and was brought to a hospital by a professor. And this case was so impressive that and so serious that the government refused to give any documentation about that. We don't know if this indigenous died. We don't know if he had permanent sequelae, maybe. And maybe the state of these indigenous after this being of that was shot against him is the main reason that they don't want to disclose any documents about this most recent case, about this last case with this indigenous that was affected.
That brings us to like talking about similar things that happened, and in one of our episodes we did a UFO incident called the Pemex Mexico UFO incident.
Ciudad Pemex.
Yeah, Ciudad Pemex in 1973. Yeah. And they had from what that story or that UFO incident talking about and phenomena to this one talking about some like a giant metal like I guess phenomenon would be the best way to describe it, you know? Humanoid, and like both of the stories had a very similar take on it, that it was a giant silver kind of metallic humanoid. Do you think a lot of these have like a lot of overlap, similar beings, or anything like that?
It's interesting because this all started with the last trace that we have. The first trace that we have is from the end of the 70s in the Operation Saucer. At that time, all the Air Force knew that this phenomenon was migrating to the Amazon forest and to the Peruvian side, this Acre state in Brazil, and also that has border with Peru. And they knew that at that time. And in 2008 to 2009, there is a huge wave of cases in Peru, in the city that's called Pucallpa. In this city, Pucallpa, they have a lot of abductions. They have a lot of people being affected by lights of phenomena, beings that they call Pelacara, which is a mythical, legendary being that they just give a name for him. And the Air Force of Peru built a special office to investigate, called OIFA, to investigate these cases in Peru. And some of the nights they called my friend, that's the commander, Julio Chamorro, and Julio Chamorro said, oh, my soldiers called me in the middle of the night, and they said, okay, we are in front of this big shaped craft. We are just shooting against the craft. What we do? And Chamorro said, oh, try to take photos. And they say, no way, we are just battle against. It's crazy. It's crazy that Chamorro is saying that. Anytime we put the English in the Twitter, and they say, no way, Commander. We are just having a battle here. So just for you to know how crazy was the events in Peru. And 10 years later, or a little less than 10 years, they migrated to Brazil in the border of Peru.
So
Oh, okay.
what you're saying also is that the military basically has known and has had sort of like a timeline of when they migrate, like sort of when we know when the butterflies migrate from every year. So the military has had this knowledge of their migration throughout South America and other countries, I bet.
Yeah, I don't know if they could predict, but it's something like that, because they said at the time that they covered lines, and if you establish 2 points, you have a line, and they know, oh, the phenomenon was there, the last one was there, and the next one will be inside this line, so in this place.
Wow.
So it's kind of predicting, not the exact location, but predicting at least the line, the straight path of the phenomenon.
Interesting.
That is still like 90% more than most UFO researchers are able to predict. Like that is
sure.
so. Like I'm just being honest. Like, you know, it's like, hey, we see this over here, we see this over here, but to be able to predict a direction, like an actual path around that, like that. Either they had one genius a long time ago who figured it out, or like they've got more data, they've got more information, because to be able to say, hey, it was in, you know, it was in Peru on this state, it was in Brazil on this state, it was in El Salvador in this state, tomorrow it's going to be in northern Mexico. Like, how do you know this?
Yeah. And the interesting thing is that the Orange Yolanda, which was the commander of the Operation Saucer, the captain at that time, the retired as a colonel, he said the behavior of this investigation about this phenomena, the operation of this phenomena, is the same of Air Force, because the Air Force also covers the regions by lines. So he said that was a similarity between the form of the phenomenon operation and the military operation.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
that makes sense.
is that because the phenomenon is doing the same behavior, or is that the behavior of our own observation? Right? Is that the behavior of our own sighting? Because it falls back to, you know, the arguments around UFOs love nuclear power plants. They love military bases. I would say there's more cameras around nuclear power plants and military bases. People are getting paid, and they make a living, and they start and they retire, and their one job is to go out every night and look up at the sky and stare at it for 10 hours and then go home. That's not normal. Most folks don't look up, you know, especially now. We're looking at our cell phones, we're walking around, you know, this and that and the other. A place with more observation. And I guess this is my theory around all of this, which is if there's less light pollution, so you can see more of the sky, and more folks that are actually looking up at the sky, there's going to be more sightings. Like, I really do honestly believe, and this, you know, we saw this during the lockdown, during Corona, like the virus in like 2020. All of a sudden, sightings shot up, like, because everybody was home. All of a sudden, everybody was home. Nobody was going out in the evenings. They weren't able to go to bars. They weren't able to go to parties. They were sitting outside in their backyard.
Yeah,
and they were
people
looking
were
up, and all
That
of
is
a
one
sudden,
component. That is one very important component. I'll count for Brazil what I see here. I cannot respond globally.
Yeah.
But 90% of this phenomena that I saw was not in the sky, was near the ground, was like on the ground literally, or near the trees, inside the trees, inside the forest, or just on top of the trees. So this is the behavior that I call like elementals, because they are very, very close to the forests, to the mountains, to the rivers. Sometimes we saw they just like floating in a river or in the lake. So I think people, it would be better to look also more down, because sometimes we are very worried about these things in the sky that for me the most of the cases are technological. For example, the Tic Tacs and so on. Crafts that go in and out the oceans and go to the sky. but we have a lot of interesting phenomena happening in preserved sites with mountains, rivers, and forests just near the ground. This is a very, very important aspect that sometimes people just neglect.
Yeah.
Do you think
So-
they want our attention, or are they doing it because they want us to watch them, to focus, or do you think it's the opposite?
This kind of phenomena interpret them like part of the nature, because sometimes they are simply playing around the trees, with that for me doesn't make sense. So it's like beings from the nature. It's like they are part of the nature. They are just there. Why they appear sometimes is a mystery for me, because maybe they were always there and we just simply can't see them.
I have a strange question here. Speaking in terms of patterns with these lights, right? With these orbs that appear. Again, we have to relate it. Us three have to relate it back to Brown Mountain. It's 35, 40 miles from where we all live. Like it's like literally, it's like right, there. Once you get to the mountain, it's an hour and a half drive up the mountain. But even though you're only going a mile or two, it's just, But
it's like the same for this place for me. It's like 2 hours, 2 hours and a half, 1 hour and a half going through the mountains. It's like very similar from my situation here.
Yeah. So at least the folklore, the legends, the stories around it here, with Brown Mountain, is that the best time to see the lights, right, is in the fall, after there has been a rain. Specifically, after it has rained, the lights tend to appear more. And I know that there is something around heat differentials. So it's a series of hot days and then like a cold night hits, and these lights appear. These might just be old tales. They might just be ways that people explain it. But there is a supposed history to a pattern. For instance, the springtime might be the worst time to see them. And nobody sees them in the springtime, but every, September or October, they're always visible. Is there anything similar to that in this area that you've been speaking about?
The month that this phenomena appears more often is June.
Okay.
That's the winter in Brazil. In Brazil, we don't have a very rigorous winter. In Rio, the winter is very, very good weather. We don't have snow. We don't have this kind of natural rigorous climate. Very, very good climate. It's cold, but for Brazil it's very cold. But for you, it's nothing. But in the winter, in June, is and more often between 6 p.m. and 8 p.m. is the statistic that we have for this specific location.
That is almost the exact same hours, and I'm going to just go out on a limb and assume the exact same type of temperatures that we experience.
Yes, because maybe our winter is the same temperature that your fall, for example.
Yes, that is literally it.
Yeah.
Wow, that's so cool.
Yeah. So I did want to ask that because I'm like, I bet you there's a pattern. I bet there's always a pattern.
Yes.
And it doesn't matter if it's intelligent life or it's a natural phenomenon. There is some sort of behavioral pattern there. I stand by this. That is not random. Nothing occurs randomly.
Yeah. And another thing that is very interesting is that we never saw anything at full moon. Never.
Oh. Okay.
And if you go to the cases in the Amazon, it's the same. The most cases happened during the new moon.
Huh.
I'm sorry, Joe. Go ahead. Please.
I was just wondering. Do you think that is that a cause of just too much light from the moon, so they're not able to see it, or is that
people
more?
Say that, but as I said here, the phenomena, 90% of phenomena happens near the ground, and it's very bright, so it's not in the sky. So if you needed to see that, you would see even with the lights of the moon. So I think that is something related to the
With gravity.
maybe with the gravity that we know that full moon will have a lot of influence here in the tides and so on, and maybe with the appearance of this phenomenon.
Okay.
Yeah. Remember when we did peyote, and that was one of the things that they were mentioning, that they do this sort of like rituals according to the moon because of it has so much to do with gravity and how it manifests within even our bodies as well. So that will make sense.
Yes.
Sure.
Well, by other side, we have a lot of, for example, in Amazon during the full moon, a lot of creatures, hybrids with red eyes that people say that are more related to the full moon. By the other side, these lights that we see here in the new moon never affected us. Maybe there is something related to that. Maybe we have the angels and the demons and the phases of the moon and all that stuff, esoteric stuff. That's crazy, but sometimes makes sense.
Nothing is a coincidence.
Yeah.
One of the questions I had for you, I know because you do a lot of research into, 70s, 80s, 60s, and sometimes 50s and 40s UFO cases. How does it affect you, going that a lot of the government documents aren't released for 30, sometimes 20 to 50 years sometimes? And how often, when you've done the research already before the government documents are released, do you say, I told you so? This is what happened afterwards.
First of all, I get very afraid because we have in Brazil a lot of aggressive cases. Sometimes we cannot attribute these aggressive cases to a direct consequence of the phenomena. Maybe it's a collateral effect, a side effect. Some people have some physiological effect in the physiological genetics, predisposition in the body that with the phenomena caused all this scenario of permanent injuries and so on. But there's some level of aggressive in some kinds of phenomena. Beings being shot against people. We are talking about 1946. Before the atomic bomb, the Araçariguama case where a man was completely burned with radiation. Their skin simply melted, all the skin of his body, in a small city in Brazil that don't have nothing, little nothing, even more in 1946. So we have a lot of aggressive cases. This worries me, but by other side, all the phenomena that I witnessed never affected me in any way, never physically affected me. So we have these both sides, and in the end of the day, we are doing not, we could say, professional science at the way, but a little piece, a little brick in the wall to the science, just doing the observation, thus sharing ideas, thus sharing with the public what we are seeing. And when you do science, you have risks. Imagine Marie Curie that investigated the nuclear research, and he died by cancer. So at the time she didn't know the long term effects, and we don't know what we are facing. If we are facing lights that will do some radiation, lights that will cure us. So there are risks, and we simply sometimes have to accept the risks.
So, it would be terrible if we didn't address that specific situation. So I feel like in the United States, the biggest risk a UFO researcher has is the government, right? But in Brazil, like the biggest risk a UFO researcher has is actually running into a UFO. Like it's like actually coming into contact might result in your skin falling off, like all sorts of very, very terrible things happening to you. I've come across less cases in Brazil of people just being like, that was nice. Way more cases of just like horrible, the War of the Worlds, very terrible, very like you said, like aggressive like encounters. I don't want to sound silly, but I have to ask this, and I honestly want your feedback. Do they just hate Brazilians? Like, what is going on with this situation?
Yeah,
why is there the difference in aggression? And
Reporting.
I would push this. Yeah, exactly. Is there a difference in reporting? Is there just as many violent cases that are happening in the United States, in Africa, in Asia, and like in different parts of the world, just as many violent encounters, but they're just not being lifted up and seen as much? Because I can say from up here, I'm looking at cases in Brazil and I'm like, I'll run into UFOs here. They're just like, hi, how you doing? We might do some things to you while you're sleeping. We'll let you go tomorrow morning. It's all okay.
Yeah.
Down there, it's like full on attacking villages. It's wild.
Yeah, we have a lot of this case about death of people. These permanent injuries is not the rule. It's the exception. We need to be clear.
Okay.
But we are these cases have a lot of serious impressions on us, cause a series of impressions in our minds. It's disturbing, and if you have 3 cases of this serious stuff and 50 cases of just light beams that affected, we will start to always think about these 3 cases because it's very depressive, it's very disturbing. So we need also to ponderate to about this stuff that it's exception, it's not a rule. So it's difficult, but as I would say, these cases that we have here, when you pass through the history, are more aggressive in Brazil. What I think here, we have a lot of aboriginals, indigenous people, and the phenomena seems to be very interested in this pure blood, lack of mix of different genetics, this pure blood of these indigenous people or fishermen villages, isolated communities. They seem to be interested. Maybe it's a hypothesis. Maybe they affected the genetics of these people many years ago, and they are just doing some monitoring and manipulations and just monitoring how the genetics of these people evolved along the years. Many people don't know, but at that time in Operation Saucer in the end of 70s, we have a lot of cases of abductions. Not just light beams being shot to the people, a lot of abductions, and maybe at that abduction some genetic manipulation was made. We don't know, but if it was real, if these abductions really happened, if these genetic manipulations occurred during the abductions, maybe this phenomena is doing a constant monitoring of the development of these communities. And it's good because these communities don't just mix with other ethnics and so on. So it's more easy to track what's happening along the years. It's a hypothesis.
Kind of tracking the genetic family tree as it expands outward and like digging down to a root and being like, we're gonna watch this.
Sure, and consequently to monitor this monitoring, this research. They have to do some invasive things like abductions, like experiments, like shooting light beams to remove skin, remove blood, to do some exams. So it seems for our vision more aggressive. But if you, I started with the same speech at my speech at Brazilian Senate last year. Imagine that in Amazon we get a panther. And this panther, we just put him to sleep with medicine, with anesthetics. We put GPS to monitor this panther along the forest. And to the mind of the panther, it's very disturbing that we are doing for this animal. But in the mind of humans, it's just research to protect them. So depending of the reference, it's very It's aggression for one, and for other is protection. So
Yeah.
this is difficult.
Yeah.
I like that
it's-
hypothesis that they're like just technically scientists that are just like not
Sure.
understanding the part of the mental part of what they do, you know, understanding that.
Sure, and sometimes this panther that we are putting some anesthetics, he had some predisposition or genetics that unfortunately the panther died. But it was not my intention to, or a permanent injury at that panther, but it was not my intention. It was just the body of that specific animal that was not luckily enough to receive the drugs that I put in him, but it was not my intention. So sometimes it happens with humans, as I said. There are some cases of families that I visit that have permanent sequelae, permanent injuries, mainly with the brain diseases.
Wow. Well,
Wow.
I do. That is
Moments
we're
of
all-
reflection.
Yeah. We're all just like,
Let me process this.
yeah. Let me process this whole thing going on right now because now
Yeah.
it doesn't. The way you describe it in your hypothesis is like, I guess it's not that bad. You know, and that makes it sad because like for those people that are being abducted, like you said, it's like it's a traumatic experience, you know,
Yeah.
and they're all struggling with this because they don't know what's going on, B, they don't understand of the end game of this, you know, and if it is a in quotation superior species of alien or UAP looking down on us, kind of trying to understand us more often than not, like you said about there being like a genetic that really hasn't mixed with anything else, so it's more of like it's been there for thousands of years, you know, and a lot of the other genetics of people that have been going different places, you know, mixing with other cultures, mixing with other things is going to be different, you know, and I can see how in a way that you look at that as your control group. If you're a scientist, you look at this as like, this is the control group, they're right here, and I'm going to look at this other group as well of like just other people randomly. So it kind of makes sense the way you're saying it, if they're of hypothesis, if they're scientists looking for it. So makes it a little weird in some ways because he was like, I don't
and
know.
the
if
problem is, I give the good example. It's protection of animals. But I could give you the worst example that, for example, produce and test bioweapons. And sometimes humans get animals to do these tests. For example, to produce new drugs. And we do these terrible things with animals. And maybe we have some races, some non-human intelligence that do these bad things to humans with bad purposes. So we have the two sides of the coin.
Yeah.
It does, and I think this is what pushes our imagination and also makes us feel so alone, is that when we think about these non-human intelligence, at the end of the day we just picture ourselves.
Sure.
We picture what we do as human beings, and we say, well, sometimes we do this to animals we grab out of the jungle. And sometimes we do this, and sometimes we mean the best, but we do the worst, and sometimes we mean the worst, and it's really bad, you know? But we're always just kind of like pushing.
I think the difference is that we as human race, we could be the good as possible and the worst as possible.
Yeah.
So instead of different races doing different things, we as humans, we don't have a singular identity of good and evil. We are at the same time good and evil, and 100%. This is what's complicating us.
Yeah, and maybe that's a good way to look at the, you know, UFOs or anything that's kind of surrounding, if there's different species of aliens out there or non-human terrestrials or, you know, extraterrestrials out there, is that like they could be good and bad, you know, and we want to prescribe good and evil because that is a lot of like what humans do. You know, not that there's a gray area in any of these things. So I think that's you know, at the end of our getting closer to the end, we're just like going deep into this rabbit hole, which is amazing. I love it.
Yeah, it's complex.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, okay. So I'm going to grab the moment. I want to ask. So Ronnie, you are an engineer, correct?
Yeah.
My nephew had an interesting question, and I think it relates back to engineering. I had to ask, how far apart do you think we are currently from the operators of these UFOs? So I am going to imagine when you step in and you see these objects, when you see these movements, whether they're physical craft, whether they're orbs, you have a different mind than we do for folks that are not engineers. Right, you see it differently, which is a beautiful, beautiful thing. You know, a painter does not look at paintings the same way normal people do. They see the strokes, they see the movements, they see the layers. You know, so as an engineer, I really want to dig in because that is fascinating to me. What do you see when you see these things? When you hear about these dynamics? When you hear about these movements? When you see them yourself? And how far do you think we are currently?
I think the most fantastic thing to think about is that some people say, behind the curtains, in the black money, in the defense, in the intelligence agencies, we have another physics that we discuss that are not open to the university. Imagine if someday people declare, okay, we have a physics that you don't know. How crazy it is. This is mind blowing and more mind blowing if you think that there are a few people that know the core secret. Sometimes if you saw the movie Oppenheimer, you saw the compartmentation where one physicist could not know what the other physicist was working, to not share the secret, the core secret, to maintain the core secret safe. So to develop a new physics in that environment is very crazy, and very crazy that you cannot hide anyone. You cannot just get, I have a genius there that was graduating. Call him. No, it's not like that. So it's very crazy to think about that. It's very difficult to me to accept that this is possible, but again, I have a very open mind, and even have very open mind, it's very difficult to accept that because of this context that I said. And if it's real, it's very difficult for me to think that we 100% reverse engineer the craft like that. Maybe we could reverse engineer like 90%, 8%. We could have some craft that some kind of propulsion to fly over there, or even go to space, but not go around the dimensions, not turn back in time, or go to the future, or do crazy things like that. But maybe we could, as Philip Coulson and others said in the past, that the fiber optics, the microchips, and different types of propulsion was discovered through these developments. But I see it's really hard to me to accept that we 100% reverse engineered.
Yeah.
Wow.
And one thing I wanted to kind of piggyback off of what you're saying is that, you know, talking about different physics and stuff like that, like a different kind of physics, like they just created randomly of like recently, I mean, maybe not too recently, but they created just accidentally created a warp bubble, you know, one thing that allows us to travel, which they theorize could travel faster than light speed, you know, and just randomly and accidentally, I can't say that enough, accidentally create a warp bubble. Just, I think a lot of the things are done are by math, you know, a lot of the mathematicians, kind of like in Oppenheimer, when a lot of these guys were particle physics professors, were just like people who studied at, you know, professors, a lot of them, some of them were students to do kind of minor details, but that they just would try things, you know, and just randomly try things and then also do the math of it. So what I think a lot of it is that the math behind a lot of the physics, it can be done. The only problem we have, especially with traveling faster than light, is we don't have the materials yet to get us there, or the things that can, the spaceship, basically, to get us into that kind of thing, to help humans survive. So I think it's super interesting that you bring that up.
Yeah, and for example, if you think about the string theory that theorized that we have many dimensions, 11 dimensions, it's mathematically proved, but when you call to physics, we don't have any experiment that could validate that, so it physically is not possible. Yeah. So this is a big problem that maybe some people in the intelligent ages figure out how to do that, how to physically do experiment or how to physically theorize that. So we don't know. It's a very, very, very disturbing, very difficult and mind-blowing to think about it.
Yeah. Now, okay, so another question to kind of, well, go along with all this, but to kind of bring it from the theoretical and the expanding down to what you've experienced and what you've uncovered. Again, you know, we do have this language barrier, this language fence around information. You know, the biggest stories on our end become the stories that you hear on your end, and vice versa. You know, like on our end, we just hear the craziest, most violent cases, and you're like, dude, there's hundreds of more cases. There's normal things that happen here, you know. But that is the result of sensationalism, the sensations, the explosions of like, isn't this crazy? And it's like, well, yeah, it is. And so that's the story that gets passed along. Now, with all of that and with the research that you've done, got to pass along, so again, some listener questions, right? So what would you say, and this can be personal as well from your own experiences, what's the one thing you've seen, and this again a question, that cannot be denied even by non-believers? So has there been any moments where it's just been like, you can't say no to this? Like, has that come across in your life? Have you experienced that?
Yeah, as I said, in 2018, I saw orbs a few meters from me, like 1 to 2 meters.
So close.
No noise, no physical traces, no radiation. It's like holograms in the movement, like shaking like that. Very, very odd. This one, the first case, but the most incredible one was as I said, in 2021, June 10th, 6:48 p.m. I was in observation in a property that was just me and the owner. It's a ranch, access forbidden for people. I've just invited there to do research, to do field research, like I did many years in Brazil. Like I said, since 2018, it was a Thursday, so it was not open for visitation. It was a closed property. I was there doing observations since like 5 p.m. or something like that. Nothing happens, and I get my camera, my Sony camera, to get photos of across that on top of the hill that was created and building to respect the father of the owner that was deceased, and was taking pictures. Incredible sky. Clear sky in winter in Brazil, very good temperature. Was taking beautiful photos, and suddenly I saw the screen of the camera. It was not many more the cross. It was a big sun, like big orange sun instead of the cross on top of the hill. I look at the camera. I thought it was an effect in the camera, and I look at it straight up. There was that sun in front of me, very, very big. The cross had like 13 meters height. So you can imagine how big was this orange sun to cover all the cross, and much more than cover the cross, cover all the area on top of this hill. I was in front of this big sun without understanding what was happening. It didn't affect my eyes, but was very, very bright. What is something very strange. And suddenly this big sun just dimmed out, and almost turned off. I get my binocular, I had a very good Nikon binocular with 10 to 20 times of zoom, optical zoom, and I look at that, and I saw 2 to 3 beings that was like crouched, big, very tall beings, like 5 meters long of height. They are looking at me. It was all black. It's not like gray. It's not anything like we depict. The most likely picture that I saw, it's like people showed me after what was Harry Potter, where they have these dementators or these monsters of Harry Potter. That's all black figures.
Yeah.
I don't know in English the name, but in
The
Portuguese,
Dementors.
Dementors, yes.
Yep,
It was like that, exactly like that. Not exactly, but it was the most likely drawing that I saw.
Yeah.
So very disturbing, very terrible. I looked for them.
Jesus.
They were just like in a sneaky way, looking to my binoculars, looking at me, like sneaky movements, like hiding behind the cross and something like that. And I looked for them like 5 to 10 seconds, and for me it was like one day looking at them.
Yeah.
So, because I was so terrified.
That's so scary.
I had no doubt about what I seen. Was very close with these binoculars, because I was like 200 meters, and when you approximate 10 to 20 times, it's like 10 meters, 50 meters.
Yeah.
So it's very close. And suddenly I get binoculars off. These beings was not solid. They was like fluid, like contained water.
Yeah.
It's like that movement, the bodies. And they started to fly and to cross like dragons and cross around the cross and crossing themselves, looking like evolutions. I have the impression they are just showing to terrify me even more because it's so bizarre. And the last action that I had was to turn on the camera, my Sony camera, without any zoom. It was like a good camera without any optical zoom lens, and film it very, very far away, as I said, 200 meters. And I ran it away to call the owner for him to see that with me, but unfortunately he was in a local property that was not possible to reach him. And that was my sighting. That, as I say to everyone, if I had the opportunity to film, because my binocular was with adapter, it's not here. It's like I use this guy. This guy is an adapter to binocular to the cell phone.
Cell phone,
I was using that. It's very, very difficult to build. It's not easy task to do, because you have to centralize this little camera of the cell phone in the center of the binocular lens. It's a hell of task to do.
I've done
you
this.
Know what
I've
saying.
done this same.
Yes.
I have literally the same thing. It is the biggest pain in your ass you will ever try to do. It's just a butterfly sneezes and it's just woo, but it's like a whale.
Yes.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but that was hilarious to me.
And I had this equipment ready to film.
Yeah.
And I was so terrified that I didn't want to see that. I put that equipment in my car, in the way that I could at that moment, shaking my hands, and everything go to the ground. So disassembled everything. So to put this again, to build this again, impossible in the dark of the night and so on. So the last, but I say I didn't sleep for 1 week or 2 weeks. Remember that if I had the opportunity to film, if I stayed calm. If I had everything assembled to film, but when you see something disturbing, so different like that, you don't have any mental conditions to do nothing. So I think this is one of the good reasons that when you have something very close, people don't have any conditions to do any record, any filming, because they become so terrified about that. And when you film this as I filmed with my Sony camera, that's a professional camera, but without zoom, 200 meters, not far away, 200 meters.
Yeah.
You don't have a good film. You don't have something. You don't have evidence. You don't have the faces of the creatures or even the bodies well focused to say, oh, this is evidence that cannot be contested. So this is the deal with the skeptics, and they say, oh, why did you film close? Because when these things get close, you get in a mental state so disturbed that it's impossible to do anything. You just freeze, you just be terrified, and no matter how you plan, it's always different. It's always a different ingredient, a different element that you not predict before, that you'll be terrified and you cannot do anything about it. This is the puzzle. This is the mystery that we are inside.
Well, hey, to the skeptics, why didn't you pull out your camera and start recording 5 seconds before you got into a car accident to prove that it wasn't your fault? Why weren't you? Oh, hold on, No, in those moments, you shut down. You completely shut down, and you just become your eyes. You just are observing it, and honestly, over the summer, from my partner and I, along with my sister and my brother-in-law, we witnessed a massive black triangle in the sky on Brown Mountain. I love UFOs, all this stuff. I've never cared at all about black triangles. Never at any point. But we saw one for about a minute and a half, and the first reaction everybody's had is, why didn't you film it? And I said, well, it's nighttime, and there's 3 dots moving across. What am I going to get on camera even if I did try to do it? Nobody cares. It's going to be 3 blurry dots moving across the sky. But, so I guess to step back here, though, because I'm with you on that around, skeptics and stuff. They're like, why don't you pull out your camera? It's just like, dude, you try. You go. You try to do that. Good luck. Yeah. But, so you had a massive orb, a sun-sized orb appear. And then you had these dark entities appear that you were able to see, that were inside of this, that were somehow manipulating the craft on the inside. You were able to see it through the binoculars, and that does not sound like a weather balloon.
It's it's just a theory, a hypothesis by me, but it's like a portal opened.
Yeah,
a huge portal. And these beings just arrived from there, because when this big sun went dimmed away and turned off, these beings appeared. So this is my interpretation about what happened.
It's wild.
Yeah, that's crazy. Well, I know Betsabe probably had one question she wanted to ask too.
Yeah.
Well, you kind of did earlier about how it has affected his personal life.
How it affected me in my life?
Well,
this sighting?
Yeah, in general, how when you started, researching more about this, and because you went from, you're an engineer, you have a life, and then I'm sure you're really busy with work. But how has this been affecting your life, your personal life? Because this is time consuming, this research that you do. I'm sure, you've mentioned, there's been some scary stuff, and also why do you keep doing this?
Yeah. It's very difficult. Everything that I do about this stuff is 6 a.m., 5 a.m. before work, or even in the nights, even in 2 a.m. Sometimes I sleep in the mid of the week, 3 hours per day. So it affects my health a lot. But it's a sacrifice that I do, because I think that's the most important question in humanity, It affects us in many aspects, in religious, social, technology, and all our structure, our society, in many ways. Our question about our human origin, our human evolution, what's our real origin. So this for me is a sacrifice that not me alone, but I'm putting a little bit small piece of the puzzle to complete the whole picture, and this is my motivation to do that. And sometimes it's difficult. For example, after that event of 2021 with the beings, I refused to call them beings. At the first moment, I called them shadows, or call them entities, or something like that, because your mind just tried to negate. Oh, this didn't happen. It's not possible. This not fits in my reality. So you, in the first moment, you become very furious to see that, because first it was something disturbing. I didn't want to see something disturbing. I want to see good lights, violet lights, beautiful, and say, "Oh my God!" For example, in the desert of Atacama, this year in February, I saw light beings, luminous beings that was beautiful. That did not interact with me anytime, and the people I was. It was very beautiful to see. It's like monumental. It's like wonderful. It's like beautiful. But these ones that I saw was very disturbing. I didn't want to look at that. This changed my life, because sometimes I asked myself, it's worth to continue to research, knowing that sometimes I could see some disturbing figures like that in my life that could affect me negatively. So I thought about that, but as I said, to help science, not maybe academic science with this stuff, but citizen science, to collect information and give information forward. You have to do some sacrifices, and I think it's worth, because we have to deal with that. We have to have courage, and have to have this motivation to share information, to develop our society, and get away of this stagnant point that we are in history. I think this is the right thing to do.
Wow, yeah. With great power comes great responsibility.
Sure.
Yeah. I love that the way you explain that is really great, and thank you for doing that, honestly, because a lot of us, I know Gil, we talk about, me and Gil were talking, and Betsy were talking about earlier, is that, like, we really appreciate you, just even the little things, like even a tiny thing that you're doing is just like transcribing from Portuguese to English. A lot of these things make our lives easier to do research on our side of it. If we're looking for things, or we want to do an episode about something, do some research, and make our listeners and, listeners aware of the things that are happening in other places, because a lot of the UFOs you hear about here, you hear about Roswell, you hear about the normal ones, the DC, you hear about not as much Brooklyn Bridge, one we've done, but like a few other the bigger ones that you're kind of like, cool, you hear about those normally, but to hear stuff that it's not just opening more people's eyes, that it's not just the US, it's not just Britain with Rendlesham, it's like it's everywhere, and it's in other countries, no matter the language barrier, like it's everywhere, and it's happening. So why not gain insight on it all? And like you talk about pushing forward, maybe not where you're saying academic, but I think in the future, if you think about it, it will become academic, Sure. It will become part of history, because as Gil explained to me, and I talk about like my love of history, like I'm a very big history buff, like World War II, the Roman Empire. It's kind of funny, the memes nowadays, but like Persia and all that kind of stuff, like big into history. And then Gil talked to me, and I'm like, yeah, I'm not as big into UFOs and UAPs as Gil is. He's like a die hard, but like he's gotten me more into it lately because he's like, hey man, this is also history.
Yeah, sure.
You know, and it's such a cool thing.
It's interesting that is history that totally intrinsically linked with the history of the nuclear energy. Like Oppenheimer, all this stuff. So it's very interesting in terms of history.
Yeah.
%. And I'll make a prediction kind of to hop in here, Joey. And I'm going off of shoot, what's his name? I'm blanking on the name right now. Richard Dolan. Sorry. Richard Dolan, who I love Richard Dolan and his research. Anybody that does great research, I'm going to keep an eye on them. I love it. But Richard Dolan, long story short, brought up an excellent point. Maybe there's a buildup around UFOs, around the discussion of UFOs, around sightings of UFOs, because artificial intelligence, AI, just became a thing for human beings. We're talking at this point less than a year. Is this the next atomic bomb? Is this the next splitting the atom? Is this the next evolution for the intelligence on the planet? I'm not even going to say intelligent life, unless you want to count artificial intelligence as being alive. But in terms of just overall thinking and processing and how it expands and affects everything around it, is AI the next atom being split? And is that why this is a conversation happening right now? Is that why this news is coming out? Is that why all of a sudden governments that have been doing everything they can to not talk about this are trying to very awkwardly learn how to talk about it? Because we might not have a choice soon. As I've always said, it takes two to tango. Our government might not want to talk about UFOs, but that doesn't mean that UFOs don't want to talk to us. Like, if they're here, why don't they come forward? Why don't they say something? And artificial intelligence might be that breaking point where they're just going to present themselves. I don't know.
Yes.
I don't know.
And everything is coming together. The disclosure about the non-human intelligence, the artificial intelligence, everything together is coming at the same time. So it's bizarre.
It's very bizarre. Well, Rony, thank you so much from the bottom of our hearts for coming on, for spending all this time. I think we're at 2-hour mark. It's been, I feel like it just flew by in like 5 seconds.
Yeah.
You know? It's like hanging out with you is like witnessing a UFO. It felt like 2 hours, but if it was only 2 seconds, it was 2 seconds, but it was 2 hours. You know, just time was lost. But man, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
I want to ask, so real quick, is there anything you would like to, or anywhere you would like to direct people towards? So social media they can follow you on, how they can support you. For instance, Black Cat Report is a Patreon member for Rony. Any of your efforts, where can people stay up to date on you? I know I follow you on Twitter. I follow you on Patreon. Obviously, those links will be in the show notes. Please go click them. But yeah, send our listeners somewhere. Where can they find you?
Okay. For English speaker, I recommend to follow my Twitter, because in Twitter I post most posts are in English.
Okay.
I publish also videos subtitled there, documents transcribed there, translated. So Twitter is the best channel for people, English speakers, to find me. My email, if anyone wants to send an email to tell something, to share something, is ronyvernet@proton.me. You could put in the describe this video maybe. And also my Patreon, I have a project, as I said, in this hotspot in Brazil, with cameras. We have Starlink internet there, a link to communicate, already installed. But we have a lot of maintenance of these cameras. We are installing new sensors, infrasound sensors, magnetometers, and so on very soon. And also I work with traveling through Brazil, investigating cases, interviewing people. I'm planning a trip to Amazon, to these indigenous locations that we talked today. So if you want to support that, you want to help with that, I have my Patreon that you could put the link on the described video. And that's all. I'm able to thank you for the invitation. As you said, it's passed like 5 minutes. Our 2-hour conversation was very fluid. It was very good conversation, like friends conversation, a long time friends talking about the topic that we love. And I hope to speak with you again. And thank you for all the audience that will see this conversation. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Of course. Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to the Black Cat Report in our episode 67, an interview with Rony Vernet. It was such a special treat to have him on, and if you don't know him, look into his work. Also, follow us on socials or wherever you get your podcasts, and don't forget to review us on Apple or Spotify. It means the world to us, and we thank you, and we'll see you next week.